want to tell you a story about an 11-year-old girl who changed the world. You see, her name is Maria, and when she was 9 years old, her mom took her down to a trash dump and sat her down on the curb and said, Maria, I want you to wait right here. I'm going to go on a job interview. I'll be back in an hour. So Maria waited, and she waited, and the minutes turned to hours, and then the hours turned to days. And it was about 3 days before Maria realized that her mom's not coming back, because she started talking to the other kids in that area, in that trash dump. And Maria, she changed the world. About a year and a half later, when I looked up and I see her picking her way through this swamp, sewage, trash dump, and she came to me and said, hey, I want you to come to my house. And so she led me through, and she took me back to her house. And her house is about 4 feet in each direction, and it's made out of milk jugs that are just tied together. And she's lived in that trash dump ever since. In this trash dump where the sewage flows down from the city above, and it mixes with the river water and floods the houses. In this trash dump where hundreds of other kids like Maria live, in this trash dump where drug dealers just sit right out in the open and sell their stuff because the police don't even care enough to try to stop it. And in this trash dump where girls as young as Maria sell their bodies just for food to eat. Now, I've had the chance to work with kids all over the world, and I've heard some of the hardest stories you can possibly imagine. And the thing is, the things that these kids have been through, that's not really what impacts me. And Maria, she didn't change the world because of the things that happened to her. She changed the world because of who she is. Because you see, Maria, she loves people. I mean, like, she really loves people. And when she loved me, man, that changed my world. And so often we get this idea that to change the world, it means that somehow we're making changes in this rock flying through space, and that's not true. You see, to change the world, that means to impact people. It's always about people. And Maria, she impacts people. And the 20 years or so that I've been working with young people, tens of thousands of students here in the U.S. I've worked with kids in refugee camps in Iraq. I've worked in kids in orphanages in Africa, Buddhist temples in Vietnam, and trash dumps in Latin America. And I hear the same things. Like, one of the things that I hear so often from students is, how can I make an impact? How can I do something that's significant? And what Maria taught me, and what so many of these other kids have taught me, is that it comes down to just two things. It comes down to this: go love. Because that's what Maria did. She saw me, and she went, and she loved me. Go love. Like, so many people, they hear me say this, and they're like, yeah, it's not that simple. No, it is. It really is that simple. But here's the thing. Don't ever confuse simple with easy. Because it is simple. But man, it's not easy. Because if you go love people, your heart will be broken. And you will take on hurt from other people. You'll share that hurt, and that's hard. And that's okay. Keep going. If you really love people, you're going to be betrayed. You're going to be disappointed. And that's all right. Go love. Now, I understand this go love, this idea of go love, that makes a really great t-shirt, right? Makes a great t-shirt, makes a great bumper sticker. But I don't want to just come up here and talk about bumper sticker philosophy with you, okay? So what does this really mean? Let's break it down. First, we go. Like, no, really, you have to go. This means you can't sit at home, hide in your room, and play your PlayStation all day. It means that you can't build a life that revolves around the latest TikTok trends. You can't build this perfect Instagram. You have to go. You have to step out of your safe, comfortable place and get out into someone else's place. It's easy to look at this and skip past the go to try to get to the love, because that's the fun part, right? But here's the thing. We can't love people from our front porch. That's what I do so often. I sit there on my front porch where I'm safe and comfy and secure, and I see people pass by, and I'm like, hey, love ya. And they smile, and they wave, and they keep on going, and the whole time they're dying inside. They're dying to be seen. They're dying to be heard. They're dying to be loved. And so if we really want to love, we have to go. Once we go, then what? Okay, then we love. Love is this idea that's thrown around in the media so much. But it's this distorted view of what love really means. We can really distill love down to this, that we're willing to sacrifice our security, our comfort, or our preferences for someone else. It means that we take off our crown as the king or queen of our little castle, and we step into somebody else's kingdom where they're the king or they're the queen. What I mean by this is so often we build our kingdom where we're really comfortable. And we think we're doing such a good job of ruling our kingdom that we should be ruling theirs. But to love somebody, that's hard, because we have to willingly submit to their leadership. We have to let them rule even when they're bad at it. That's what it means to love. And if we do this, like I said, you will be hurt. I want to tell you that right up front. It's not easy. You will be disappointed and you'll take on this pain, but it's okay because it's worth it. Because when you meet your Maria, or when you meet your Norbadar, or your Zena, or your Dilvine, or you meet your Zach or your Laura, then you'll realize that it's worth it because they are worth it. Because they're amazing. And so go and love. And again, I don't want to just come up here and talk theory. Like, I'm a very practical person. And so I want to talk about 3 things that each one of us can do in our own lives, and me more than anybody else. That if we do these 3 things, then we live out this idea of go love. And the first one, like literally it's the starting line. Say yes. Like this is where it begins. Because the world is full of people saying no. And when that one person stands up and says, you know what, I'll do it. I'll step out of where I'm comfortable and I'll give up my security or my safety or my preferences for you because you matter. That changes the world. I know this girl in Iraq. Her name's Amina. And like I said earlier, I've heard some of the hardest stories. And Amina's is one of the hardest. When she was 15, ISIS terrorists invaded her town. They killed most of the men, they took most of the girls and young women as sex slaves. Amina was taken, she was sold again, sold again. She was moved between Iraq and in Syria. And finally, as the ISIS area of control was starting to shrink, she was moved back into Iraq, and she was being held in a house with about a dozen other terrorists. And an American airstrike hit the building she was living in, killed all of the ISIS guys. She was buried under the rubble. And for 3 days she lay buried. Burns over 80% of her body, bones broken literally from head to toe. 3 days she lay buried. So finally an Iraqi soldier heard her crying and pulled her out. 2.5 years later, she still lives in a refugee camp. Snow and rain in the wintertime makes life almost unbearable. And of course, Iraq summers, not exactly a picnic. If anybody has a reason to check out and go, you know what, I got enough trouble of my own, I don't need yours, it's her. But you know what's amazing? She says yes. Like, she leans in and she says yes. And she gathers up other girls from the refugee camp that have experienced the same things, and she takes them and she talks with them, and she listens to them and she cries with them. She takes them to the ancient Yazidi temple in Lalish to help them find ways to heal. And you know what's happening? She's changing the world because she said yes. Because those girls that she's loving are spreading out. They're being accepted as refugees in Germany or in Canada or Australia. And the love that she gives is echoing all around the world. She's literally changing the world by saying yes and loving people. And so we have to say yes. That's where it begins. The second thing that each one of us can do is just simply to listen. This is harder than it seems in today's world. Like, we think that we're listening, but we're really just hearing what somebody's saying in order to form our response. We think that we're listening, but we're just trying to figure out what to say back. I got a call last summer from a big government organization, and they were trying to deliver aid after a disaster. And they were struggling. They were having a rough time because they would bring the stuff in, and the guy that called me, he's like, you know, they outnumber us 100 to 1. They're just coming in and taking the stuff, and there's nothing we can do. And he had heard stories about us delivering aid to 10,000 people in Iraq with a team of 5. And he's like, what's your organizational structure? Like, what's your distribution plan? Like, he wanted all the technical details. And my first question back to him was, have you just gone in and sat down and listened to the people yet? Like, when we deliver aid in Iraq, we're not just showing up with stuff. We go, we sit down and we talk to them. Like, what brings you joy? What are your fears? What are your hopes for your kids? What's the greatest need that you have? Because what happens when we listen, they become people, not a mission. They become individuals, not an obstacle. And we start to realize that this person we're not listening to, they're not an interruption to our day, they are the significance of our day. And so we have to listen. Not to respond, but to see the person that's really there. And then the last thing that each one of us can do every day is just simply to serve. And some of y'all are probably like, all right, great, I can check this one off the list because I'm in this club, it requires me to get 10 service hours every semester. That's not what I'm talking about. Because you see, we can rack up all kinds of time serving, and it's all about how awesome I am. It's all about my value and my worth. But to really serve people, that's about them. It's about seeing their value, their dignity, their worth. I come back from all these trips with thousands of pictures. And I love to show them to people. And one of the things that happens so often is I'll show them a picture and they'll be like, oh, he doesn't look like a refugee. And I'm like, that's because he's not. He is not a refugee. Refugee is where he is. That's not who he is. Who is he? Oh, he's crazy smart. He's got this sarcastic sense of humor that I just love. He's the most loyal friend you could ever imagine. He's resilient. He's hardworking. He wants to be an airline pilot, even though he's never even been on a plane. His refugee camp is right next to the airport, so he sees them fly over. And so he looks at those planes and goes, yeah, I want to do that. He misses his home. He misses his family. That's who he is. Refugee, that's just where he is right now. And anxiety or depression, that's not who she is. That's where she is for a little while. Or homeless, drug addict, lonely, scared. It's not who they are. That's just where they are. And it works the other way too, valedictorian. class president, football team captain. That's not who they really are. It's just where they are. You see, we have to look past these labels to see the person. If we really want to serve people, then we need to see them for who they are. We have to see beyond the temporary situation to see the human being that's there. And so say yes, listen, and serve. That's what it means to go love. Now, some of y'all might be sitting here thinking, well, I can't go. Why not? Like, seriously, why not? Well, I'm a student. I can't go to Iraq. Maybe not. Maybe so. But can you gather up some friends and go to that retirement home across town? Can you get up from your safe seat in the cafeteria and go eat lunch with that new student that just started at your school? You can go. You see, in the end, we all have a choice. We can either choose to aim our lives for success, or we can aim our lives for significance. And it's possible to have both, but all the success, all the money, all the influence, all the power, that will never lead you to a life of significance, never lead you to a life that makes an impact in the lives of others. But if you go and if you love, then you will have an impact on others. You'll bring other people along with you. You'll inspire people. You'll lift people up. And you, each one of you, you will change the world. Thank you.